Radio Free Santa Clarita presents The Talk of Santa Clarita, a podcast about issues involving Santa Clarita and the surrounding valley. With your host, Stephen Daniels. Episode 166. Democratic candidate for the 25th Congressional District in 2022, Ruth Luevanos. And now, let's see what the Talk of Santa Clarita is.
And remember, this is for posterity, so be honest.
Ruth, thank you for coming to the Talk of Santa Clarita. I appreciate it. You had to make a bit of a drive to come down here, didn't you?
I was about a half an hour drive from Simi Valley. Not too bad.
So that's not down. That's over.
It's over. You know, well, I always think of, you know, how do you get to Santa Clarita from Simi Valley? So, either you take the 118 to the 5 or to Balboa or to, I was telling my husband stories. I'm like, gosh, I have stories about Sierra Highway. Like, I remember because I worked at Magic Mountain and my dad didn't want me driving the freeway. So I said, I remember like driving back, 11, 12 at night from Magic Mountain, working there when I was a teenager. And I said, I saw some weird things on this road, And I said, I don't know if it's because it was late. I remember seeing like a family, like a mother and father and children, but they were all dressed in white. And it was late. It was like almost midnight. And they were walking on the side of the road. And I said, you know what, maybe I should pull over and help them. And I remember making U-turn, and there was nobody. And I'm like, oh, man, this road is so hot. I did not enjoy that. So
I think your first mistake was deciding to turn around.
Yeah. I'm a helper. That's who I am. I like to help people. But I was like, oh, my gosh, I have a child. I should turn around. And then when I went back, they were gone. But I have a lot of stories of this region, this area, because I'm strongly connected to it.
Well, let's start with the real basic stuff.
Yeah.
What is the proper pronunciation of your last name?
So if you put an Evan in the middle, then you'll never mispronounce my name. So you say Luevanos, and then you put it together.
Luevanos.
There you go.
Okay,
there you go.
Because I had trouble with the word Carlos. I just did have trouble with the word Carlos. So that's a Latino name? You're Latino? Or?
Yes, I'm Latina. Actually, my husband's name, when they immigrated from Mexico, their last name was actually Luevano. And they added an S. A lot of, immigrant families get their names changed at the border, and that's what happened to my husband's name. So they added an S.
He could have ended up named San Francisco.
Yeah.
So he got lucky, I guess.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about you as a person. You grew up in San Fernando Valley. Mm-hmm. Lifelong Southern California resident. Is that
yes.
correct?
Yes.
Now you live in the Simi Valley.
Yes.
How did you end up? Why did you move into Simi Valley?
Well, when my husband and I met in law school, we both went to Loyola Law School. We met there, and when we got married, he was working in Westlake Village at the time and living in Thousand Oaks, and I was living and teaching in Sylmar, and we're looking for someplace in the middle. So it was like Simi Valley, Woodland Hills. I'm like, I do not want to drive the 101, and I felt like Simi Valley was more diverse than Thousand Oaks, and so it was kind of in the middle. We wanted to be fair to each other, right, in our commutes, and so we chose Simi Valley.
You're fairly new to politics, aren't you? I mean, as far as like running for office, I mean, have you always been an activist in general, or a troublemaker as some?
I've definitely always been an activist. I would say if you want to say officially political, only the past obviously 3 or 4 years. But in terms of being political, being a teacher is political. Like especially being a social studies teacher, which I've been for over 20 years, it's political, regardless of whether or not you want it to be.
See, I was reading your bio on your website, and I was really intrigued with. I mean, you've done a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And so I thought it'd be interesting to just kind of track back on your bio a little bit. And you grew up in San Fernando Valley. You live in Simi now. Now, where did you go to college at?
I went to school back east, so I went to George Washington University.
Oh, show off.
So I was 4 blocks, from the White House, and I wanted to be, I majored in criminal justice. I was going to, be an FBI agent and catch serial killers, and, I had watched. Exactly. So, that was my goal. And at the time, way back when, there were only like 3 universities offering the dual degree in criminal justice and psychology, and it was like Cal State Fresno, George Washington, and Florida State University in Tallahassee, and I got into GW, so I'm like, yay! I'm going away.
But you get the degree, and then you went to law school.
I did, because we had FBI recruiters come to GW. I mean, literally, we're in DC. And FBI recruiters came to our school and they said, either you need, to be an FBI agent, either you need a major in accounting or go to law school. And I was like in my 3rd year, accounting. Right? And I'm like, yeah, I don't want to be an accountant. So.
Why accounting?
Forensic accounting, so you can like catch, people cooking the books and stuff like that. And so, so they were looking for forensic accountants, and they're like, or a law degree. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to law school.
That strikes me, being a forensic accountant. I mean, it's like you've got the cool job name, FBI agent, and then you say, but I'm an accountant.
Well, I have a friend who's a forensic accountant, and she's done that job. She doesn't do it full time now, but I'm like, I could see how that's really interesting and useful to the FBI, but I was like,
I'm just going for the easy joke.
Yeah, I'm not a numbers person. I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'll just go to law school. That just seemed easier.
Law school, and what happened? I mean, why did you want to be an FBI agent, and why aren't you one now?
I wanted to be an FBI agent, and I went to law school with the intention of I will get my law degree, and then I will, get a job where I can, and I'm bilingual, so I speak Spanish. So I knew that was one of the things they were looking for. But your life takes a left turn. You plan your life, and God has other plans, right? And so when I graduated from law school, I was waiting for my bar results, and you have to wait. It's like 4 or 5 months to get your results. Yeah. And my friend said, "Well, why don't you apply to be a substitute teacher?" And this was in 1999. There was a huge bilingual teacher shortage, and right away they're like, "Okay, take the test, the bilingual test," and I passed, with flying colors. And like a dozen schools called me the next day, and they're like, "We want to hire you." And I'm like, I don't have any job. Like I don't have a teaching credential. I don't have any job experience. Like, we don't care. And at the time, they were importing like lots of teachers from Mexico and the Philippines and everywhere, because there was a huge bilingual teacher shortage. Right. And so I went in and interviewed, and I have a sister who is she teaches teachers. She's actually the director of teacher ed up at UC Davis. And I said, I don't know what to do at this interview, and this is just temporary. And she goes, well, talk about, scaffolding instruction, and talk about, and she gave me the keywords to use in the interview. And so I went and I did the interview, and they hired me. And I'm like, wow, what did I get myself into?
And did you, folks? She just said, she gave me the keywords. You cheated.
No. I mean, I understand what those words mean now, but it's the same thing. Like I researched you before I came.
Okay, well,
listened to some of your podcasts,
and you still showed up. So
yeah, absolutely.
No, so you get married. You say you met your husband in law school.
I met my husband in law school, and I started working as a teacher, and we were engaged. And after you. I was in the year, and it was a tough first year, but I remember deciding, at the end of the year, I'm like, I want to do this. Like, my heart's here.
It's almost a calling, isn't it, to be a teacher?
It is a calling, and
my wife is a teacher, and she feels that. She talks about it like it's a calling.
It is a calling. And I had, when I decided, okay, I want to do this. I want to do the teaching. I want to do the teaching thing. And I didn't know for how long or, whatever. But, you're married, you're going to have kids, and I had my mentor teacher who said, Ruth, you'd be a great attorney, and I could see how you would shine in the courtroom, but your heart's in the classroom. Mm-hmm. And I've always carried that with me, because it is. My heart is in the classroom.
What is it about teaching that you love so much?
I love kids. Like my own children are like, you're obsessed with babies. I'm like, I do. But I love kids. Like, I love chubby cheeks and the missing teeth and the way they talk. And I love children.
Leave your address at the end of the show.
Yeah.
I'll mail you my kid.
I do it. I love kids. And then I was a theater minor, and it's, you're on stage, you're there, and I'm a people person. You're talking to the kids, you're engaging with the kids, you're talking to the parents. You get to be a comedian, you get to be funny, you get to be engaging, you get to be entertaining, you get to be an artist, you get to do all these things, and a scholar. and then take your kids on this journey with you. And by kids, I mean your students. Your wife is a teacher, so I'm sure your wife refers to her kids all the time.
She does, and speaking of the creativity, I was kind of amazed at how much creativity, when Karen and I got married, just seeing how much work she would put into both of us.
Oh, yeah.
And just talk about the significance of why it needs to look right and everything like that. The dedication that's involved. Kudos to any teacher. And
thank you.
Yourself. So,
and kudos to your wife.
Oh well, she has to put up with kids and me. So, and you're a Democrat, obviously.
Yes.
Where are you on the spectrum for? Are you a Hillary or a Bernie Democrat?
I'm definitely, I don't like putting people in boxes, but I'm definitely more towards Bernie.
Yeah.
And I teach social studies, so I always talk about how everyone's on a spectrum on different issues.
Right.
And everyone is on a spectrum on different issues. So, I don't agree with Hillary on every issue. I don't agree with Bernie on every issue. I think we all have our own spectrums depending on which political issue you're specifically talking
Did you vote for
about.
Bernie in the primary, or what do you say?
For which election? Because he ran
2016.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was a big fan of Elizabeth Warren.
No, I love her. She's great.
She spoke to me. She's just a very strong woman, and I loved her policy stands. Again, I didn't see eye to. I mean, there wasn't one candidate that was like everything is 100%, right. But there was stuff that I liked about Bernie, and there was stuff. Yeah.
Acknowledge that no candidate is perfect.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There is no perfect candidate.
Yeah. But you identify yourself as a progressive, though, correct?
Absolutely, unapologetically progressive. Yes.
Okay. Why are you a Democrat, and more specifically a progressive? What is it about that party that appeals to you?
Well, it's definitely more inclusive, and more importantly, actually addressing the issues that are impacting our community. I see a lot of deflection, from addressing actual issues in the other party. And, we need people that have solutions to address the real issues that are impacting us right now. So we don't have time, I don't like the interjection of religion, even though, I identify and I was raised as Catholic, but I don't like people imposing their religion or their faith on me. Right. And as a teacher, I have to step back from that and say, even though this is my faith and my religion, I'm not going to impose that on my students, nor am I allowed to do that. And so I don't do that. I can, I teach world religions and history and geography, and so I can teach people what it is, but I cannot indoctrinate people, nor should I.
Well, no, but that is the word that everybody throws around about social studies teachers these days, is indoctrination. But I was curious about, you're openly a progressive Democrat. How do you teach nonpartisan social studies? How do you do that if you lean toward the left? So.
Well, my students know the first thing they hear out of my mouth is I am not a Disney teacher, so I will not teach Disney history. I will teach real history. And so they already know that. But, our history is so fascinating. History is fascinating in and of itself.
I agree.
So I don't need to make anything up, because I couldn't make up the things that, actually happened in this nation's history. There's just no way to make it up.
The example I always use is when I had a really conservative history teacher who really was a great teacher, but he was very conservative. So I walked away from high school thinking, Ronald Reagan and Gerald Ford were great presidents.
Right.
Not to say they weren't or whatever, that's not an opinion, but I'm just it was indoctrinated to a certain extent about the beliefs on that. And even in Kentucky, where I'm from, they teach the Civil War as it not being about slavery.
Yes.
They teach it about being about economics. You're familiar with that?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So it does come down to the frame of reference is what my teacher would always say. The frame of reference, as he would say, and when it comes to teaching. So you kind of, is it a struggle sometimes to find good things about the right?
You know what? You teach all the perspectives, and you let the kids decide for themselves, because it's not my job to indoctrinate the kids. That's why I get upset. They're like, well, you can't teach this other perspective. I'm like, but I'm not telling kids, that's the right. I'm just saying, here's all the information. It's like a buffet. Here's all the food. I'm not going to hide, the corned beef because I'm, a vegetarian. It's like, here's the whole menu, and you decide, what you want to have. does it, negate the facts of what happened? It's not fair to hide, the facts of what happened. So it's for me to disseminate all the information and let the students decide for themselves. And my job is to teach critical thinking. My job is for the kids to be able to think on their own and to be able to question things. And I think that's part of, what I was hoping would come along with Common Core, is that we would reinstitute the curiosity of our students and allow them to think for themselves and believe for themselves, what it is that they know to be true, but to have all the facts at their disposal and not just limited amount of facts. And you mentioned, with your teacher, it was a conservative teacher, and so you grew up to believe certain things. And so the hardest thing for a teacher is to teach students to unteach something, right? That they've been taught a certain way.
To unsort that out of my head.
And it's not just in social, like it's in math. Like when I taught math, I taught math at a school for pregnant girls, and the kids would be like, "Well, my math teacher taught me this way," and I said, "Well, honey, there's more than one way to skin a cat, So, you can do it this way or that way." And I said, "There's 5 routes to Disneyland, but, I said, as long as you get there, right? I said, we do this all the time when we're driving in Southern California, right? Because of all the freeways. Just even getting here, I'm like, oh, this is interesting. It's telling us to go down Balboa and take Sierra Highway. I said, we could just take, the 5 to the 14 and get off there. Or we could, I said, I could tell you, 5 ways, right, to get to Newhall. I said, and it depends on the traffic and whether you want to get there quickly or, what route you want to take. You want to see something historic, so I said, as long as you reach your destination, that's what matters.
Have you always been a Democrat? Have you always been progressive?
I've definitely, my dad is very involved. He had to drop out in 7th grade because he's the oldest. And so he had to help out raising the family. My grandfather on my dad's side was in the Bracero program. He's a farm worker in Broly. And so he was away for a long time, and so my dad had to step into the role of being the leader. But my dad's always has never failed to vote in any election, reads 2 to 3 newspapers every day. Like, he is just so, learned. He's just so, I consider my dad one of the wisest men that I know. And he's lived the history. And I remember doing a paper in college on the Cuban Missile Crisis and calling my dad from D.C. and saying, Papi, what's the Cuban Missile Crisis? And I was like, oh, mija, let me tell you. And he was so excited, and he knew all the dates and all the facts and who did what. And I love that he did that. And again, he reads 3-4 newspapers a day. Like, even, he's now trading time between Arizona and California. But, he reads multiple newspapers. He gets multiple perspectives. So even though, he's a Democrat, a lifelong Democrat, like, he will read the Arizona Republic. He will, he will read all the different perspectives. And I think that's where I get my, my strategy of teaching is like, here's all the information, and you decide for yourself.
You were the first Democrat elected to Simi Valley Council.
As far as I know, yes.
As far as you know?
Yeah.
And the first Latino, right?
The first Latino, first woman of color,
See,
yeah.
I don't get that. I can't say Latino correctly.
We had a Latino before, but we never had a Latina, a female.
Excuse me.
So... Yeah.
I'm really bad with the gender-based.
Oh yeah, no worries.
Okay, well, Latina,
yes.
Latina. Okay, I'll get there eventually. So I mean, how did you win? I mean, Simi Valley is known to be pretty conservative. It's Reagan country, literally. What was your secret?
I like I said, I'm a people person, and so people. First of all, everyone knew me as a teacher, and I think that really helped. There's a lot of teachers in Simi Valley, people had known me from. I'm also a mom. I have 2 teenagers, so people knew me from my son's little league baseball teams, and from Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and Taekwondo and Ballet Folklorico, and so people knew me, or knew of me. And they knew I was always walking around grading papers and helping people, and people would always ask me to tutor their kids, which I was glad to do because I like to help people. And so I think, and I knocked on a lot of doors. I walked a lot. My husband walked with me. My kids walked with me. My son, my daughter. There wasn't a day that I wasn't knocking on doors or making phone calls, and I loved it. That was the part that I enjoyed the most.
Enjoyed the campaign.
Yeah, I had a good time. I had a great time.
Do you enjoy the job now?
It's it has its advantages and disadvantages.
Well, you're known to be a bit of a fighter.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, see, but we were just talking. You were talking about knowing the good and the bad from both spectrums and everything like that. And I attended your virtual fundraiser that David put on last week, and you talked about being a fighter a lot.
Yeah.
But doesn't government require a certain amount of compromise and working with the other side to get things done?
Oh, absolutely. And if you sit in on any of the city council meetings, you'll find that we agree a lot of the time, a majority of the time, especially in closed session. And we will have our debates and we will have our discussions. But I've agreed with everybody, at some point or another, and they've agreed with me at some point or another on multiple points and multiple issues. In the end, we have to keep the perspective of why were we elected and what is our job? And for me, it's always about improving outcomes in the community. How do we do that?
Right. And
so that's always my eye on the prize, because I'm a national board certified teacher, and I had to put in the mindset. Oh, is she? She's NBC too? Oh, awesome. And so, when you do that, everything has to be about intentionality and about improving outcomes for your students. So when I was elected to city council, I took on the same mindset, okay, how do I improve outcomes for the community? So it's not about me or my reelection. It's about how do I help the community? How do I improve outcomes for the community? And so that's always been the perspective that I've had in mind. And there's been times when we've, disagreed, but there's been a lot of times when we've agreed.
Has it always been your goal to be a politician?
No, I had no idea I was going to go down this path.
What brought you into running for city council to start off with?
I was asked. I went to a meeting. Someone who's a friend of mine, who's a dance mom. Another one of my daughters has been got a dance studio since she was 3, and so there's this cadre of dance moms in Simi Valley, and we all watch each other's kids. And one of the moms said, "Hey, I know you're very progressive, and they're having this meeting. It's regarding immigration. Would you be interested in going?" And I said, "Sure." So I did, and they said, "Hey, the city council is going to vote on this, California SB 54, the Family Values Act, and we need advocates." And so I went to the mayor's meeting, and there were the 2 other city council members there, and even my teenage daughter took off her headphones because they started talking about Mexicans being rapists and criminals and drug dealers, and I was appalled. I'm sitting there with my 12-year-old daughter, and she's hearing this
because America doesn't have rapists and
right. So
they're all from Mexico, apparently.
And it was heartbreaking for me. I remember leaving that meeting being very disappointed. I'm like, I will be at that city council meeting. And my son at the time was working on a speech merit badge for Boy Scouts, and I said, you need to make a 2-minute speech. Why don't you just come with me? And I didn't know he had really done his research and delved into it. And we got there, and it was it was loud, it was rowdy, it was scary. It was really scary.
We had a similar situation up here when that subject came up.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, a lot of the same people
that
were at one
going up and down the state.
I don't know where they live, but apparently they're very passionate about immigration.
Yeah.
So so you decided to run and
we went to that meeting, and a lot of things happened there with threats to my son, and it didn't turn out the vote the way that we wanted it. We wanted them just to stay neutral.
Yeah.
Just to stay out of it.
I thought the city council should have done the same thing out here, because to me it's like, why even dig up that issue in a city council situation? Because all it does is divide the city, and it's a state and national issue. And
we were the only city in Ventura County to take a stand, and I was like, well, Thousand Oaks stayed out of it, and Camarillo stayed out of it. Just stay out of it. And there was this insistence that no, we have to take a stand. So after that, there were several community leaders who gathered together and said, okay, where do we go from here? And there was a discussion about putting together a slate of Democrats for the first time ever and running the slate, and would I be interested? And I said, yeah, I'll come to the meeting. I told myself, I'm going to go to this meeting. Okay. And then I come back, I'm like, what do you think about me running for city council? And he's like, well, if you want to do it, I support. And we've always, we've always made decisions as a family, from, me deciding to get my teaching credential to be getting my master's and getting national board certified. My husband, when, he's changed jobs, we always make decisions as a family because it impacts all of us. So, whether it's, commuting time, or how we're going to balance the kids and our careers at the same time. So it's not something that I decided for me. It's like, okay, we as a family. My daughter was completely opposed. She's like, no, Absolutely not. And I was like, what do you mean no? Yeah. She's like, you're going to spend less time with me and I need my mom. And then I'm like, well, it's 3-1. So, I'm running.
What a great example of democracy.
Yeah,
there.
yeah. But she, she flipped completely when she came and walked with me. I never like canvassing alone because I'm like, I want someone to know where to find me, where to find me in case something happens. And so she came with me and she saw like how some people were just very, hateful and people threatened to sick dogs on me. And she was like, Mom. And I go, I know. And after that experience, canvassing with me, she's like, I'm totally on board. Like, I'm behind you. And, to the point where she's like, you're going to win. I'm like, you're crazy. There's no way. I'm like, I'm a first time. I've never run for office. There's no way. And when I won, she's like, I told you so. And I was like, the kid who didn't want me to run. And
was it a close vote, or did you win by like a landslide, or what was it?
It was like it was over 1,200 votes, I believe. So I was really kind of, and they had told me like a month before, they're like, you're in 3rd place. I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah. And like, keep doing what you're doing. I'm like, okay. And I just, I remember it was my dad's birthday party.
First time you ran for anything, right? And
I've been involved with, as a teacher with the California Council for Social Studies, with the National Council for Social Studies. I've been a delegate for the NCSS, and I was on the board of directors with CCSS for 8 years prior to that, because we didn't have a representative in Region 8, which was like Ventura County, Kern County, all that. And so I ran, and because we didn't have a rep, so I was a rep for 8 years, and then someone else ran, and I got voted out. And I remember it was like in March or something. I told myself, I'm like, well, I'm off the board. And he goes, so what do you do with all your free time? I'm like, I don't know, something will come up. And then it was really funny to me. I'm like, and then this came up, right?
Are you still serving your first term?
This is my first term, yeah.
Okay. What prompted you to want to run for Congress?
The same reasons I ran for city council. I had people who came up to me and they're like, we want you to run. Like, and at first I thought it was a joke. I'm like, you guys are funny. They formed a Facebook group and they invited me. And, I get invited to a lot of Facebook groups, female entrepreneurs, and, activists and this. And so I was like, yeah, I'll join your group. And I just saw people I knew, so I joined the group. And then I saw the title and it said Ruth for CD 25. I'm like, oh, you guys are so funny. This is really funny. But they kept asking. They're like, we're serious. Like, we're not joking around. And it wasn't, one activist sat down with me and he goes, we're serious. We want you to run and we're here to support you. And that was very much the same. I felt like the same calling like it did for city council, where it was like, there's a group of people here. We want you to run and we're here to support you. So it's not just, we want you to run, Ruth, put yourself out there. It's like, we want you to run and we got your back.
Yeah, that's important.
And I was like, wow, this is like, people from Antelope Valley and Santa Clarita and Simi Valley were asking me to run. And I thought about it, I prayed on it, and I asked my husband, and he's like, he was my most enthusiastic supporter. He goes, you'd be a great congresswoman. And he was so enthusiastic, and my kids were too. And that to me, without my husband's support, my kids' support, like, you don't do this journey alone.
Well, you certainly have the resume for it. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. The law degree, the criminal justice thing, teaching social studies for 20 years, being a teacher. There's a lot of things in there that make you look, just, wow, that's a person that should be serving in politics. Did you pay attention much to the 2018 race and the everything that happened in 2020 and 2018? Or?
Oh, I mean, obviously I was running in 2018, so, we were, there were people, running for Congress and Assembly out there, and, we didn't get a lot of, down ballot support, but it didn't matter to me because I'm like, we're going to run. I'm going to knock on these doors. I'm going to talk to people. I'm going to do, because that's what I enjoy. So, and there were people that had never talked. They're like, that's you. They would look at the flyer. They're like, that's you. That's your face. I go, that's me. And they're like, and you're here knocking on my door. I'm like, that's me. And it was really funny because they just like felt like I was a celebrity because my face was on a flyer that I was handing them that I was running. But I love that. I love that people got engaged. And I think that's what excited me about, because I'm a social studies teacher, I'm all about civic engagement and how do we get more people involved. Not like everyone, like not just people who support me, but everyone. I want everyone's opinion. Our government is only as strong as the people who choose to participate in it. And so that was really big to me, that this is an opportunity for me to increase civic participation in our city and have people really understand the issues that are, that are happening here and not be so passive, right? And so I've seen that, in the years that I've been in office, and I'm thrilled. Like, there have been people that have started new organizations, and, we have, Simi Serve, and we have, it just an activation of civic engagement that I hadn't seen in the years prior to that, and I was really excited about that. And this feels the same way to me, running for Congress. If I have the opportunity to be a public servant and engage people in the democratic process,
Right.
like, there's no downside to that, right? Regardless of, who's engaging, because we want people engaged. Our voter turnout is dismal compared to other countries around the world. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but we have to have representatives that get us excited. Yeah.
I'm just curious, did you think that Election Day should be a national holiday?
Absolutely. And it used to be in many cities around this country, and in many countries around the world. It's a day off. No one goes to work on Election Day. You just focus on voting. And now we have to, and your wife's a teacher, so she, I have to, my principal, that I have now, God bless her, is, she's like, it's voting day, you guys can leave 2 hours early, or you can come 2 hours late so you can vote. But in other countries, you don't have to choose between earning a living and engaging in the democratic process.
Right.
And that's something we have to fix. It should be a holiday. It's like school should be closed, work should be closed, everyone go and vote.
My only, I agree with you on it, but it just seems like to me, on the other side of it, you're going to have a lot of election eve binge drinking, because it's party tomorrow, got the day off. So a lot of people be voting with hangovers. So that concerns me. But beyond that, I definitely agree with you. It should be a national holiday. But maybe we should have aspirin available at the voting booth.
Absolutely.
Tell me about what you want to do as a congressperson. I mean, tell me, what is your core issue that you want to do? If the first day you walk in there, if you're elected and you walk in and your staff looks at you and go, what do we need to do? What is it? What is the first thing?
Fully fund public schools.
Fully fund. Now, by fully funding, are you talking all the way through pre-K?
Yes, pre-K all the way through university level.
So all the first 4 years of school?
Yes, and we have, for me, like the issues that are impacting me, like even now during the pandemic, is we still have brown and yellow water coming out of our leaded pipes in schools that are, in some communities, over 100 years old. Like, I was driving by, we're across from Plaza Rita Junior High School, and it was like, founded in 1960. I'm like, yeah, I'll bet they haven't changed their leaded pipes. We have kids that cannot drink. When I went back to school, and I went back to face-to-face instruction on Tuesday this week, and we each had, 2 cases of bottled water. The fact that we have bottled water that we need to give our kids because the water from the drinking fountains is not potable tells you the state of our lack of investment in our public schools. So, we have broken toilets, we have broken sinks, we couldn't get soap, we couldn't get paper towels, the air conditioning doesn't work. The heat is about to, come on us really hard. And, we have classrooms where there's still no air conditioning, where there's still no ventilation. And you're asking us and our students to go back in the middle of a, pandemic that is still, ravaging, countries around the world, like in India. And people don't feel safe going back to public schools because we haven't invested in them. And so, I'm talking about basic infrastructure, like I said, removing the leaded pipes so I don't have to be told to flush the water for 20 minutes before the kids can drink from the drinking fountain. Making sure that you remove asbestos. I was in a school 5 years ago where they still had asbestos in the school, and they're removing it in full hazmat suits, right, during the school day. Right? And I'm like, I was in that room, like, you're removing it from the classroom that I taught in and the workroom that I made copies in, and you're in a full hazmat suit from head to toe, and I was in there with nothing, like, all year long. And I'm like, well, gee, now I know why my blood pressure was 212. Now I know, why so many teachers get sick and why so many teachers have asthma and so many students, because we haven't even, gotten the basics of that. I've been in classrooms with, moldy, leaky roofs where if it would rain, I would get buckets.
Well, I don't think anybody would, most people would say fund education, fund education,
yeah.
Fund education. But getting it done, how, to me, there's something admirable in what you said about the fact that you're a fighter.
Mm-hmm.
On the other end of it, though, the cynical side of me says, well, fighters don't always get things done because they're fighting so much. And you look at right now, even with the situation with the District of Columbia becoming a state and Joe Manchin being the one vote preventing that from happening. Same thing with gun control. Joe Manchin's the one person that's preventing any the universal background checks. And it seems like that's a hard sell even to a lot of Democrats. How would you get that done?
You talk about people love to talk about fiscal policies and the fiscal impact. And, that's something that appeals on both sides. So I'm a numbers person. I'm a data person. I want the numbers. And the truth is that our lack of investment, like I'm just talking specifically about California. We only spend $14,000 a year on our students, but we spend close to $60,000 on our prisoners. Mm-hmm. So we need to stop telling the future of our country. Yeah, no, the opposite. We need to tell people that, we value your future and we have faith in your future by investing in our students. Yeah. And let's shift it. I'm not saying take away from our prisoners, but that's crazy that we spend 4 times as much on prisoners. And that alone, our budgets reflect our priorities, right, as a nation and as a country and as a community. And when we are investing 4 times as much in prisoners as we are in our students, then we're telling our students that we don't have faith in them, that we would rather invest in their incarceration than their education. And that's backwards. We need to show our students through our budgetary, priorities that we are going to invest in their education and not, the incarceration. And those are things that we have to focus on. And that's going to help build our communities. That's going to help make sure that we have, educated students that are out there, that are critical thinkers, that are going to be engaged in the civic process, and that are going to lift up our communities. We know that education does that. And I know because, I'm the daughter of, 2 immigrants, and all 5 of us have a college degree. And we've all gone back to our communities and helped lift up the communities in which we work. And so it's an investment that is, generational and that pays back in dividends. And so we need to show that. So for me, public education is first and foremost the way where it needs to be. The pre-K and the, universal childcare is pivotal. I remember having to put my son in daycare when he was 6 weeks old, because we didn't have anyone else to help us take care of him. And I wasn't making a lot of money, but 2/3 of my check went to the daycare.
Well, I guess I don't feel like you're answering my question. I guess what I'm asking is, are you willing to compromise on some of those issues to try and get something done? In other words, if you got enough people, a majority like Nancy Pelosi comes up to you and says, we can't get you, community college, but we can get you the pre-K and kindergarten. That'll go through on a vote. Would you hold back and say, no, it's got to be everything? Or would you say, let's make that happen?
I think it depends. If I get elected, there are some things that we can't wait on. Mm-hmm. There are some things that, I can't cross the line. I can't continue to advocate for not funding, getting rid of, leaded pipes in our schools. No, I will not,
But my point is,
there's no compromise there.
Okay, but my point is, at least that's something. It's a start. You know what I mean? I love the idea of universal health care. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's going to happen for another 20-something years, but it will happen eventually. But I do see something like a public option as a stepping stone, an Obamacare as a stepping stone, slowly moving toward that direction. And it's at least getting something done, and it's a start. So I guess what I'm saying is, would you hold your guns to something to get everything you're demanding or asking for? Or would you be willing to go, okay, we'll do this now, we'll come back to this other stuff later?
Well, you have to work with your colleagues, obviously, yeah. And, I've done that for the past 2.5 years on City Council. Yeah. But there are some things where, I wanted body cams. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I'm not backing down on wanting body cams. I want accountability for our local law enforcement. Right. And so, I can't compromise on that because we need accountability. Mm-hmm. And because people's lives are being directly impacted on a daily basis. So, there are some things that you cannot compromise on. And if you do, then you've lost, the faith of the people that you're supposed to represent.
Right.
And so, do I want everything that I want? Obviously, I would only be one elected official, out of 435 total. So I can't say that, it's my way or the highway.
Right.
But there are some things that we cannot wait for, that we cannot compromise on anymore, because it's affecting people's lives directly.
Okay, so what can't we compromise on?
We got to fix our schools. we have to make sure everyone has the right to be part of a union. Mm-hmm. We're hearing about workers that are having to pee in bottles because they don't get bathroom breaks. That's ridiculous.
Well, that's the story, but I think there's some that actually just enjoy it.
So I hope not. I hope that's, don't mistake that for Mountain Dew, right? I hope that's not really true.
No, I get you about
but
that.
Yeah, no, there have been people, specific populations of people that have been intentionally left out of that. I mean, we still have, the Dolores Huerta Foundation fighting for farm workers because farm workers still don't have the things that Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta fought for all those years ago. Yeah. We're still fighting to get chemicals, out of there so that, we don't have such high incidence of cancer. We're still fighting for healthcare access, and especially during a pandemic when a lot of, campesinos and agricultural workers have lost loved ones to the pandemic, but they're still out there on the front lines, every day. Right. So, and making sure that those populations of people that have been the most vulnerable and disenfranchised have a voice and are entitled, as much as they contribute to this community, they should reap the benefits of contributing to this community. So pathway to citizenship for all the essential workers, and by essential workers I mean the agricultural workers, like I just discussed, who've been here for years and years and years. That seemed to there's been presidents on both sides, that have been wanting to do immigration reform for a long time. Pathway to citizenship for our veterans. We have veterans that are being deported. How do you justify that? How do you justify saying you're not patriotic, but you went and volunteered to go be a part of the military and possibly sacrifice your life, or limbs, or mental state of being by being in the military, and then you come back and then your country, who says thank you for your service, deports you.
I've always found it ironic that there's a certain kind of criminalization or villainy portrayal of immigrants.
Yeah.
When to me, leaving your home, no matter what it is, to come out here and usually traipsing 3,000 miles or whatever, for hopes of a better life, to me that is the most American thing a person can do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Actually, let's pause for a second, because we do a thing called Ryan's question. That's my kid.
All right.
And Ryan's question to you is this.
Hey Ruth, why is there a crisis on the border, and why do some people have a problem with immigrants?
Well, the crisis on the border is cyclical, but it is caused by, a lot of issues. So there's push and pull factors that determine immigration and whether or not, why people leave and why people choose to come here. And I actually, teach about this in my class. But, we have extreme climate change. I mean, we've had a fire almost every day in this congressional district this week, literally. There was another one in Simi Valley yesterday. My daughter's like, flames. So we have, extreme climate change. We have, political persecution, religious persecution. We have extreme violence. I have family members who came from, El Salvador, because, they showed up and the cartel said either, your brothers joined the cartel or we're going to kill the whole family, and so they're like, okay, well, I guess we're leaving. And so they took off. And you can't blame those people who are literally trying to save their lives, their families' lives, for coming to this country and seeking better opportunities. And just safety, just not even opportunities, like just to exist, right? They're just coming here to exist.
But why is there such a disdain for immigrants? I'll give you an example, because my kid is confused. he talks to me and his mother about immigration, and he sees it in a different way than some people do. But then he talks to his grandfather, my father, who just is obsessed with the idea of building a wall, and sees the depiction, and so my kid kind of has that attitude of like, why does Papa see Latino people or immigrants as villains? Why does that exist? Because
it's easier to just blame someone than to look at what the issue is. And the issue has been in this country, usually it's economic. It's always economic factors. It's always economic stress that cause people to instead of dealing with the economics, right? Let's blame that group of people, because it's easy to say, oh, those are the people that are to blame. And we've seen it with despots around the world, around the history of this country and this globe. that it's easy to blame a group of people and say it's their fault that you can't afford your house, or you don't have enough to eat, or you don't have this and that. Right. But it's but that's not the reality. The reality is there are economic factors. We have a huge, the largest wage disparity we've ever seen in this country, where you have CEOs that are making trillions, billions and trillions of dollars, while, we still have the minimum wage in some states at $7.25, $7.50, so there is such a huge disparity. And it's like what magicians do, if you can distract them long enough, right, they won't see you actually doing, what they're doing. And so that really is why we have so much disdain. And, part of that is, you mentioned you had a professor, a teacher at the beginning who, taught you very conservative. And so no one is born, bigoted, right, or discriminatory. No. Like, you are taught that. And when your life goes awry, it's easy to just blame someone. It's that person's fault, as opposed to looking at the systems, right, that create that disparity. And, unfortunately in this country, we've always, focused on, Eurocentric perspectives and, vilified, but even specifically like Western European perspectives, because there was a time in this country where we vilified anyone from Eastern Europe, right? People were there that were darker skinned, were from Italy. I have a friend who's Italian, and, she's like, oh, I'm always told I'm darker skinned and this and that. I'm like, that's so funny, because now, it's not viewed that way. Yeah. But, I think what we talk about racism, we're really talking about colorism, and that really is the issue that a lot of people don't want to talk about. But as we see, the younger generation is more diverse ever. Like, people 15 and under now in this country are no longer majority white. Like, it's majority everything else. And
that might be what my father fears.
Right, and there's nothing, and I think there's this fear of, I'm going to lose, power or money or authority, or or by
racism, isn't it?
Yeah, yes, it is racism.
Call it out for what it is. It's racism. It's a fear that your white society
is going to die.
Is disappearing.
So, and unfortunately, we have a lot of systems that are ingrained in white supremacy in this country, and so recognizing that. And once you see it, you can't unsee it, right? Once you see it, then you're like, oh, I see it now, I can't unsee it. And denying it or not discussing it because it's controversial or uncomfortable doesn't make it go away. And we've seen that in countries, like literally, countries that have banned you from talking about racism. It doesn't make racism go away. Cuba is like, you can't talk about racism. Like, okay, but it doesn't go away, right? It's still ingrained in the systems there. You still have to talk about it. And that's why, I'm a huge proponent of ethnic studies. I've been teaching ethnic studies for the past 2 years, which I love. I love teaching ethnic studies. And it has validated and verified so many of my students of such multicultural backgrounds, but also of intersectional backgrounds, which is really a pivotal part of ethnic studies, because you can't put, for example, I have a student who is, Black, Latina, teenage mother, and foster. I can't put her in 4 different boxes, right? I can't separate her being Black from being Latina, from being, and yet we want to do that. We want to say you can only be one. But she's one human being, right? So she's all these things. So, I think that's part of the conversation that we need to have as well, and not separate people out into boxes, but acknowledge that, there's many different layers of us. We're like croissants, right? We're all different. We have all these different layers, and it makes a beautiful pastry, right?
I prefer to think of it as 7 layers.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the issues that are. You said you're progressive, so I'm kind of curious where you stand on a couple of the progressive ideals. For example, Medicare for all. You support it?
Absolutely.
Now, are you a fervent, it's got to be Medicare for all, or would you support a public option? Again, talking about that moving slowly towards something.
I think there's a difference between people talking about access to healthcare, right, and actually having healthcare. And there's a big difference. So I'll just, I'll give you a quick story. My sister was born with a birth defect in her left arm. So that's considered a pre-existing condition. Even though it's a birth defect, it's not something she caused, she was born with it. And she was so desperate to find health care that she took a job at 24 Hour Fitness and became a Zumba instructor just so she could get access to health care, right? So, okay, yeah, you have access to healthcare, and I'm doing air quotes for those of you who can't see me. Access to healthcare. Go get a job, or go do this, or go do that. And then you can have access to healthcare. But is it really?
Yeah.
It's a difference between talking about equality versus equity. They're different concepts, right? And so, Medicare for all would make sure that everyone, has healthcare, period. Not access to healthcare, but has healthcare. And that's one of the paths. My husband and I have debates on this, just so you know. He's a healthcare attorney, and he's like, well, but I think there's room for compromise, but I don't think there's room in terms of, making sure that excluding people, from having health care.
If there was a public option, everybody would have that option to at least get health care of some sort, and it would help regulate, or should help regulate, the prices from private insurance.
Well, and that's the thing. We have for-profit healthcare companies in this in this country that have existed for a long time, and their priority is not, not the well-being or health of their patients, and so So I think whatever option we have, but I feel very strongly about Medicare for all, is that the priority. And I'm a backwards planner, so you know this because your wife's a teacher. I look at what is the goal? What are the standards my students have to learn by the end of the year? And if the goal is for everyone to have health care, then let's make sure that we have healthcare systems that prioritize improving the health of everyone in the community, not on making money, whether it's on prescriptions or denying people, the healthcare that they need. I mean, I was with the healthcare system that said, that's not cancer, don't worry about it. And then 2 years later, when I switched healthcare providers, like, that's cancer, and it turned out to be stage 2 melanoma.
Oh my gosh!
And if I hadn't switched healthcare providers from a healthcare provider that only cared about making money off of me, versus someone that cared about my health and well-being, then I wouldn't be here in this chair right now, probably. So we have to look at what is the goal of healthcare, and if the goal of healthcare is to make sure that we have a healthy populace, which I'm hoping that it is, then I think we will get there. But if the goal is no, well, we can't, I'm getting this lobbyist money, from this for-profit healthcare company, we're never going to get there. Because the goal isn't, to improve the health of our populace. We have some staggering statistics, in terms of infant mortality rates, and
But then, how do you pay for it?
How do you pay for it?
Yeah.
We would actually save money if we had a Medicare for all option.
Cenk, who's a friend of the show and coming by later, maintained that as well, that it's actually cheaper to do Medicare for all than the private healthcare system.
Yes.
Where is that stat that shows that? Where is the proof on that?
Well, I mean, I can tell you right now, when you go to the ER, we have people that wait, right, to go because they don't have healthcare providers. And I'm talking about my students. I talk about my students a lot, but we have people who wait until they get really, 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 really sick, and it's an emergency, and they go to the ER, and then they get that X-ray, which now costs $1,200, versus if they had gone to the doctor before, it might have been, $120. Right. And so we are paying it as taxpayers. We are paying for it because there are people who don't have access to healthcare, and they wait until the very last minute, until things are really dire, and then they go and to the emergency room, and we pay a lot more. Right.
But I mean, there's no written statistic or evaluation that.
No, there's actually been quite a few research studies that if we did Medicare for all, it would lower costs. We would save money as a country if we did Medicare for all. So, there are options that will make sure that people are not waiting to go to the doctor. We have people right now that don't want to get the vaccine because they still don't know that you can get it for free. Yeah. They're like, but on the form it says, what is your insurance provider? I'm like, but it doesn't mean you have to have it. So there's a lot of misinformation out there, and the goal is, again, the goal of everyone being vaccinated is that we can go back to whatever our new normal is, right? But we can't do that unless, this percentage of people get vaccinated. And if people are still thinking that you have to have healthcare insurance because it's on the form, they're not going to get vaccinated. And so having everyone vaccinated improves everyone's lives, right? It means that we can go back to our new normal. People can, go back to their jobs. They can go back to work. We can reopen Magic Mountain full time, right, at Disneyland, and get our economy going again, get kids back in schools to make sure everyone is safe. But you have to know that the access to healthcare is pivotal to that. And if you knew that you could go to a hospital, like my tia goes to a hospital in Mexico and knows that she's not going to have to pay for it and walk out with the medicine that she needs, right? If we had that here, then she wouldn't, people wouldn't wait until things are really, really bad and you need an appendectomy that's going to cost thousands of dollars. So we know that it's going to save us money in the long run. And then you can also focus on preventative care like they do, in other social health care systems, like in Canada, like in England, where the doctors actually get a bonus if they lower your blood pressure, right? Or you're really? No longer pre-diabetic, things like that. Yeah. So I'm like, I would love a doctor that would get a bonus for, just like teachers get, evaluated based on our students' test scores and improving their test scores, right, and graduation rates. We need the same thing in our healthcare system. We need, doctors that are going to, instead of getting a bonus for not telling your patient you have cancer, right, you should get a bonus for preventing that cancer, right? And so again, very outcome driven in terms of how do we improve outcomes for people in the community and the country, and if the goal has to be having a healthier populace.
What about the Green New Deal? Where are you on that?
Absolutely. I'm on the board of directors for the Clean Power Alliance, which is now the 5th largest energy provider in California. I'm like really excited to be a part of that because we're all about renewable energy. And like I said, we had wildfires like almost every day this week in this district, whether it was, in Castaic, in Santa Clarita, in Simi Valley. And I'm like, wow, we don't even have a wildfire season anymore. It's all year long. It's all year long we have wildfires. So we cannot wait on this. And it's the future. I mean, General Motors has said they're going to come out with an all electrical, vehicle line of cars. And one of the things I voted for on the board of directors was to transition people from fossil fuel industry jobs into clean energy jobs. So we have to make sure that whatever the Green New Deal looks like, that we transition those workers and don't leave them behind into those renewable energy jobs. I really want an electric vehicle. I can't afford one right now because I'm a teacher, but what I do, I want to travel cross country and know that there will be stations, EV stations all across, those electrical vehicle charging stations all across the country. And even when I took my son up to UC Davis and University of San Francisco to visit colleges during spring break, I was keeping an eye out on, look, where there's, EV charging stations. I'm like, there's one here and there's one there. And, and I was I'm telling colleagues, elected officials in Arizona, I'm like, you guys need to get on the ball. And they're like, why? I said, because when I get my EV, I want to make sure I can charge my vehicle, when I travel to Phoenix, right? Or Utah, Arizona. So even if your state is not on board with, electrical vehicles, people want to travel to your state in their electrical vehicles, but they're going to need charging stations there. And these are jobs that we know will be sustainable, that, help the environment, that, are good union paying jobs that provide benefits, and that you can travel, right? If you get trained in being, in creating these electrical vehicle stations, you can travel to, Utah, Nevada, and Virginia, and Kentucky, and Tennessee, and build these stations. And what a cool job that would be. It's almost like our generation's version of the railroad. How do you build that so that you make sure that people have access to that, so that we can, it would be great to hear about people driving, from 3,000 miles across the country from coast to coast in an electrical vehicle. Yeah. But we got to make sure that the infrastructure is there. Yeah. And solar, I'm so excited when I drive up and down the state. I see solar panels everywhere now. You saw them driving on. I'm like, yay, solar panels! I was so excited. And we're working on, all of the new contracts we have, the Clean Power Alliance, they all involve battery storage. So, people are saying, well, what do you do at night? Well, you store it, right? You store the energy. And so, there's new technologies coming online every day in terms of how do you store that solar energy so you can have it, and so that we can have a better world for our kids. In terms of climate change and not having, fire tornadoes and not having, floods in one part of the country and droughts in the other. And so I'm excited about the Green New Deal because there's a big future there. And even back east, I saw solar panels in Massachusetts. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's solar panels. And I kept pointing them out to myself. I'm like, look at solar panels. Like, Mom, enough with the solar panels. I'm like, I'm just really excited to see all these solar panels and these solar farms and wind energy, even though you can't do wind energy everywhere because not everywhere has sustainable winds. But, hydroelectric, and we're seeing all these renewable energies. And it gives me great hope that, we are working towards building a better future for our kids so that they don't feel so angry at us, right, for leaving this mess in their hands.
Is Biden doing a good job right now?
On what? That's, I just did an interview with the Washington Post and, he asked me more specific questions. Yes and no. There's some things that I'm happy he's moving in the right direction.
Well, what's he doing wrong? I guess let's start with that.
I want refugee families to be reunited.
Are you working on that? I mean, apparently, it was my understanding that, their claim was that the Trump administration had just I don't even refer to it as the Trump administration anymore. I just call it the glitch. The glitch, apparently understaffed the entire immigration system and everything like that, and didn't communicate with them about anything. So they kind of were like finding out about problems like at day one. So
right.
Not even knowing where some of those kids are now and reuniting them with the families, it was, particularly when they were 6 months old or.
Yeah, so we need to get trauma counselors in there. We need obviously bilingual and in some cases trilingual trauma counselors that speak the languages that these refugee families are coming. Mm-hmm. We can make sure, and I've been asking for this for a while, is make sure that no one is permanently adopting these refugee children out to American families. Mm-hmm. There was a case of a woman in South America who had come here as a refugee with her child, and she got separated from her refugee child, and she. An American family permanently adopted her child because you only have 2 years to communicate with your child, but there was no one that would, at the refugee detention center, where her child was being held, that spoke Spanish. So because she wasn't able to speak to her child in the language that she had to communicate in, she lost permanent custody of her child. Jeez. And so, that needs to be a policy. That's a policy he can put in place right now, saying we are not going to permanently adopt out, refugee children, because, their parents, no one comes here saying, yes, I don't want my child. No one does that. Refugee parents come and refugee children come because they have no other choice. Mm-hmm. And so, to have that trauma consistently imposed upon your family, and I'm dealing with it on the front line in my classroom, and I'm sure your wife is too, is that we're having these refugee children, that once they finally are reunited with their families, if they are, they're so traumatized by that experience. And so we need bilingual, trilingual trauma counselors, that policy decision to not permanently adopt out refugee children and to provide translators so that parents who, got deported during the glitch, as you call it, have a means to communicate with their children and not lose permanent custody of their refugee children.
Is that your main beef with them?
That's one, but if you already know what countries, the majority of the refugees are coming from, then that you need to hire, these bilingual and trilingual trauma counselors. So put out a call, hey, we want, bilingual, trauma counselors and therapists and social workers to come and help, ease the trauma that these kids are experiencing, and not having, 12 and 13-year-olds, taking care of, 5 and 6-year-olds, making sure they have access to, we have, there's a foster care services in San Diego that put out a call for, diapers and tampons and maxi pads and underwear. And, it's like, I feel that specifically because as soon as I got back in the classroom on Tuesday, like literally this Tuesday, like I'm like, okay, the kids don't like the school lunch, or it's a terrible school lunch, and I don't blame them. And I'm like, okay, I gotta go buy snacks. Like the next day, I was at the grocery market, like, okay, I gotta buy tampons and maxi pads and snacks and toilet paper, all the things that my students need. So if I know that I'm going back to the school and I'm gonna need those things, then there shouldn't, these foster agencies that are going to be most impacted, like the one in San Diego, they need the support, the help now. And there's nothing preventing President Biden from signing an executive order saying, okay, go buy underwear and tampons and clothes for these kids that are coming here with nothing.
Congressman Mike Garcia seems to believe in the old philosophy of building a wall. Why are you laughing? Tell me.
Because it's not effective.
As long as they sell ladders in Mexico.
Well, but he only ever talks about building a wall on the southern border. He never talks about building a wall on our other border. I mean, we got 4 borders, right? We got 2 coasts. We got a northern border. How come he's not talking about building a wall there? How come it's it always comes back to these racist ideals of who is worthy and who is not. So why only talk about building a border in the southern wall?
Considering he's Latino.
But as a Latino, he should be extending the privilege of the opportunities he's had to the next generation. And that's, his responsibility just as it is mine. And I live mine. I live my ideals in the classroom every day. Going back to the community. I don't teach in Beverly Hills. I teach in Reseda. I teach.
Has Mike Garcia been doing anything good as a congressperson?
He's talked about, reversing the mortgage, tax credit that we got, but I haven't seen it. It's talk. It's not action. I want action.
Would you have voted for Biden's $2 trillion COVID relief?
Absolutely. I'm a local elected official, and I think that's something I bring to the table. Is I understand the connection between federal and state policies and how they impact us on a local level. Mm-hmm. And as a city councilwoman, I can tell you that that is what impacts our community directly. Is how the funds get to us, how they get distributed to us. In Simi Valley, we don't always get the funding that we ask for. But it's important that we do, because we're the ones that are directly reaching out to people that might be evicted, in June when the moratorium on evictions ends, right. To the local business owners. I was just talking to a business owner yesterday, and I said, did you know that, the city of Simi Valley has over $500,000, to give to people who haven't been able to pay the rent, and we can give you up to 3 months rent? She goes, no, I didn't know. So I'm on the phone texting her, right? She's texting her daughter, and she goes, talk to my daughter right now. And I said, can I talk to the employees? Can I tell, my daughter was getting her banks cut. And those are the kinds of things that we are directly impacted by, and we on the local level see it. And so being a locally elected politician, I understand how it comes down and how it impacts local economies. And we have had to help a lot of our local businesses and our local residents, and we're on the front lines.
What about his $2 trillion, I believe it's $2 trillion for the infrastructure, or is it $4 trillion? The numbers are at this point, but when you talk of actual money, it's like.
Yeah, like I said, we need to improve the infrastructure, in our public schools and our roads, and because of declining taxes, and we have not had the funding to fix our roads. We have not had the funding to make sure we have enough funding for our public schools and our hospitals and our roads and all the things that are basic infrastructure.
So you would support it?
Absolutely, absolutely. And
even though it's going to tax people that make more than $400,000 a year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I've had people say, well, taxes are bad. Well, we had a corporate tax rate that was much higher, it was 38% at one point in this country, mm-hmm. and that helped fund a lot of those things. So we need to stop the corporate welfare and make sure that everyone pays their fair share. I agree with President Biden on that, absolutely 1,000%. Everyone should pay their fair share. I should not be paying more in taxes than Nike, right, or other companies. Or Amazon, or you can be profitable. Mm-hmm. And, I look at, Costco is a good model where their CEO makes a lot of money, but they pay their employees livable wages, and they have benefits, and they like working there. Mm-hmm. And you actually get more productivity out of your employees when you treat them humanely. And, I've noticed that, I will volunteer a lot more when I have a principal that is willing to work with me and treat me like a human being, right? Yeah, I'll work those extra hours, and I'll come in on the weekend, because I know that you're flexible and you're willing to work with me and treat me with respect and dignity that I deserve as a worker. And so we need to do that. The infrastructure also will bring, good union paying jobs that will sustain, our economy. And we know that the middle class and lower class, they're the ones who, as soon as they make money, as soon as they get stimulus, they go and they spend it. And that is what really boosts the economy.
What about raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour?
Absolutely. I don't think there's a state anywhere where you can get even a studio apartment, living off the federal minimum wage right now. Mm-hmm. No one should have 2 or 3 jobs. To be able to afford a roof over their head or food on their table.
Right. Okay. I want to talk about January 6th. Did you watch it on the news when it happened? What was going on?
I was teaching. I've been remote teaching from school, and I just want to put that out there for all the teachers. Thank you, teachers. We have not stopped teaching, and people are like, teachers are back in school. No. We have been teaching since this pandemic hit. Yeah. It has not. So,
it's not easy.
For all the teachers out there, we never stop teaching. If anything, our hours have not stopped, and they've started earlier and stopped later. And so I just want to put that out there for all the teachers out there. Kudos to all my fellow educators who've been working their butts off. I was watching it, and it was it was surreal to me. You know, my children were walking in and out as I had the TV on. My mother-in-law, you know, was home. We're a 3-generation household. My mother-in-law lives with us, and we have 2 teenage kids, a crazy dog. You know, my husband, you know, had to go to the office. But I've been teaching from home, and it was crazy. It was surreal. I was like, you know, as a history teacher, I'm like, this is history. This is history. I'm like, this is horrible history. Like, this is another horrible chapter. And just, it was terrifying to see. And you know, the thing is, I had my teacher hat on. You know, once you're a teacher, you're always a teacher. But I sat there, and when they were like, you know, shuffling out, and they're like, you know, the Capitol's on lockdown because they have, you know, shooters, and I was like, I would know exactly what to do in that situation because I am a teacher, right? And I know what to do during a lockdown. And in my head, I'm like, the first thing I would do is tell everyone to turn off the lights, turn off their cell phones, and be quiet, right? Like, I had my teacher hat on, and I'm like, I would know exactly what to do in that situation if I were in Congress, because I would tell them, you know, what to do.
The reason I bring it up is because Mike Garcia is one of the, I think it was 160 Republicans that voted to challenge the Electoral College.
Yes.
For 2 states. He put up that, or his argument was that was because the question of voter legitimacy. Is he part of that insurrection then?
I felt that way, and when I saw him on TV, you know, raising his fist in support of the, you know, insurrectionists, these are people who went with armed, you know, with weapons. They had a gallows, they had, you know, they had fully loaded weapons. Bombs were found, multiple weapons were found, with the intent to kill our vice president, with the intent to kill Speaker of the House, with the intent to kill as many Congresspeople as they could.
I don't think he was raising his fist. I think you're thinking of Senator Hawley.
Oh, maybe it was a high five, but there's made
a
a
picture of him talking to some insurrectionists before.
It was a gesture of to me a gesture of support for the insurrectionists. And you know, there's a difference between talking, you know, and discussing, and you know, to find out the perspective, but you know, undermining duly elected officials is not okay. And as someone that has been threatened, you know, with physical violence, with death, you know, as a locally elected official, you know, they've threatened me, they've threatened my family, they've threatened to deport me and call me a terrorist and said they're going to kill me and hang me. And, you know, I was a little triggered, you know, when I saw the gallows there, because that was a threat that I was given as a locally elected official.
So he is you consider him part of the insurrection? I
consider him supporting overthrowing our government. And that's unconstitutional. Yeah, that's unconstitutional.
So the Facebook name that some have called him, they refer to him as the traitor known as Mike Garcia, applies for him? I mean, that's a pretty strong accusation to say. I've thrown it around, but I'm just saying that's, as a congressional candidate, to say you view him as a traitor.
There's a point in time in which you have to acknowledge, and if he would acknowledge that, hey, yeah, I you know, seeing now in retrospect, like, you know, how bad things were, and we're all human, we all make mistakes. That's why pencils have erasers, right? But once you're wrong and you know that you're wrong, like, you have to acknowledge that, because you can't move forward as a community. We can't move forward as a community knowing that that's our elected official, and that's how he feels, and he was okay with that. And seeing
he voted after, and what surprised me was because there were some senators that backed off on it. Kelly Loeffler was one of them. But he maintained it even after the insurrection to still to contest the vote. And what bothers me is it's like he has this, he comes up with all these reasons that, you know, that the votes might not have been illegal because of the Constitution, blah blah blah, and all this other stuff. And what sticks in my head is, would you have done that if Trump had won? Would you have challenged the same thing if Trump had won? Because if you would have, I still kind of have a problem with it, but at the same time, you know, at least you have, you know, consistent thinking. But I don't think that's the case with him. I think it was the fact that Trump lost, his guy lost, that he was challenging that vote. I'm just speculating, by the way, but it certainly appears that way. But you know, I mean, I mean, some have skirted away from calling him an insurrectionist or a traitor, but you're not afraid to.
I don't think he represents the people he was elected to represent.
Clearly not, because 10% of the votes went. Biden won this district by 10% more.
Yes.
So I mean, 10 points more. But do you think he's just playing to his base completely, or?
Yes. And again, that's not your duty. That's not your responsibility. When you're an elected official, you represent everyone in that district. Whether or not they agree with you politically or not, you still represent all those people in that district.
Yeah.
And you can't shy away from talking to or engaging with those people. You don't have to agree with them, right? You can't agree with every constituent you have, but you have to listen to them, and you have to be willing to represent them, because that's what you were elected to do. And I've done that. I've had people, I had someone who, the man who led the recall against me, who came and spoke at a city council meeting agreeing with my policy, on tiered water rates, which, I think that's a good, reflection of the job that I'm doing as an elected official.
Yeah.
Is when someone who, disagrees with you politically and, on other things, but says, hey, but I agree with you on this policy issue.
Yeah.
I think that's a sign of a good elected official.
Yeah, he's blocked people on Twitter that don't agree with him. So.
Right, and there's, there's issues with that, because you can't block, once you're an elected official,
Yeah.
you can't block anyone.
On any of your accounts?
That's anti-democratic. That's anti,
Well, yeah, I agree. It's like, then he's just hearing from his base on it.
Yeah, unless it's, a threat of violence, which, and I having, Facebook has blocked, I'm still getting threats, on Facebook of, violence against me. And so it's kind of jarring to not know what's in it, because it's blocked. And I'm like, they're threatening me clearly because Facebook has blocked it, but I don't know what exactly they're threatening me with. But I haven't blocked people, because you need to listen to everybody. Whether or not they agree with you or not, you need to listen to everybody. That is your responsibility as an elected official.
There are a couple of other candidates that are running for the Democratic nomination, or the Democratic role in the election, the 2022 election. Do you feel that that you just basically are a better candidate? Do you feel? What are your feelings on the other candidates? You don't have to name them. You don't have to disparage them. I'm just. Obviously you think you all bring something to the table that the other candidates don't.
Yeah.
And what is that?
Well, I don't want to discourage anyone from running. I think, this is a democracy. Everyone, everyone's entitled. If you meet the constitutional requirements, of being this age and being, this, a resident or a citizen, then run,
I'm lose my sign here.
Yeah, I see that.
It's already had a couple of rough bouts.
Just saying there.
Yeah.
So, I'm not going to discourage anyone from running, because I think that would be anti-democratic. Everyone's entitled to run. If they want to run, they should run. What do I bring to the table? I'm working 3 jobs right now. So I know what it's like to have to work multiple jobs. I know the fight that labor unions are fighting right now. For basic things like safety, right? In the middle of a pandemic, I want to make sure that I'm safe going back to my workplace. Obviously, I'm in the trenches as a teacher on the front lines, dealing with all the issues that our families are dealing with, that our students, our kids are dealing with. Right. And I'm a mother with 2 school-age children. I'm Latina. I'm bilingual. I speak Spanish, and I definitely want to talk to people, and want to reach out to them, and consider myself someone that, I'm going to come to you. I don't want you don't need to come to me. I'm going to come to you and talk to you about what issues are impacting you. And I'm going to focus on the issues. I'm not going to focus on the politics. I'm going to focus on the actual issues. And that's what I've done in city council. And that's another connection I have, is because I'm a locally elected official, I understand that connection, and, what impacts us from the federal to the state to the local level, and how that is actually played out and impacts our communities directly. So, and I've been there talking, I've been the multitasker, right? Teachers are great at multitasking in terms of, making sure I speak to the different issues and advocating to local issues that are impacting our communities. And when people have asked, I've answered. I can't answer every single call at every single minute, because, like I said, I work 3 jobs, but I understand, the perspective of working families, and I'm not going to back down. I'm not afraid. Obviously they've tried to recall me, they've threatened me. I'm not backing down. And there's some things that I'm just not willing to compromise on, because our families can't wait any longer.
That's a good answer. Let's have a little fun. Okay?
Yes.
We're going to wrap things up here a little bit.
All right.
First question is this, very simple. Do you have any tattoos?
I have no tattoos, but several scars.
Just as good. If you're going to get a tattoo, what would it be and where would it go?
I thought about, I don't think I would ever get a tattoo, but I told my daughter, I'm like, maybe later. And she goes, where? I go, right here. So I have a cancer scar on my arm. And I've seen I saw pictures of people turning scars into tattoos. I'm like, oh, that'd be kind of cool, right? And they're like, what would you get? I'm like, I don't know, but it would be Harry Potter related because I'm a huge
Harry Potter fan.
Huge Harry Potter fan, yeah.
Do you prefer that over Lord of the Rings because they kind of came out?
I love LOTR too. I love Lord of the Rings as well.
Oh my God, you refer to it as the LOTR.
Yeah. So
we've got a geek on our
hands.
Geek alert! Geek alert!
So yeah, I love LOTR, and I'm definitely more of a Harry Potter fan. I think I know more about Harry Potter than I do about Lord of the Rings. But yeah.
Marvel or DC?
Oh, this is hard. I like the Marvel movies, but I like the DC characters. I love I'm a huge Wonder Woman fan. Huge. And my husband and I have been going through this because he's always been a Marvel and I've always been a DC. So when we go to Comic-Con, we go in separate directions, right? He goes, right? And I'm like, but you like Batman, don't you? He's like, yeah, I do. And I'm like, okay then.
He's a fashion.
So yeah, no, like I said, I love the Marvel movies, but I like the DC characters a lot. And now with with the Teen Titans and with the the new TV series that have come out, there's some great plot lines, and it's fun exploring these with my kids who are teenagers. Yeah. So literally there's Saturday mornings when we get up and all four of us are watching cartoons, and my mother-in-law is like, how old are you people? And we're like, still old enough to watch cartoons on a Saturday morning. So
but, it's different now with the kids because Saturday they can watch anything on demand.
Yeah.
So it's like their Saturday morning cartoon day is any day, any time. Yeah. Because I had to explain to my kid what Saturday morning cartoon day was, and we make it a tradition. Usually, this is done on a Saturday morning.
Yeah.
Here, but we make a tradition of sitting down on Saturday morning and watching cartoons together. So, but I had to explain to him that was the day to watch cartoons.
Yeah, no, it's funny because my kids, my son's into Craig of the Creek. Mm-hmm. He loves that show, and I was like, dude, you're 17. And he goes, it's a great show, Mom. It's just, and you know what he loves about it was, just so you know how geeky my family is. My son is really into D&D. And so the kids that are at the high end of the social scale ladder in this cartoon Craig of the Creek are the teenagers who play D&D, and I think that's the fascination for him. He's up here on the social scale, which is really funny to me. But yeah, we're geeks all around, all four of us.
It's going to rule the world. So it's if you were going to have dinner with anybody, alive or dead, who would it be?
Oh my gosh. That's so hard. I think I would want to, that's a really hard one. I think one of the people I've always wanted to meet is, gosh, that's really, really hard. I think I'd want to meet Madame Curie. I think... in
a hazmat suit.
Yeah, yes, in a hazmat suit. I know. We watched the film the other day, and my daughter's like, "Why does she keep carrying around, radioactive stone?" Right?
Her coffin. Her gravesite is still radioactive.
It probably is.
There's a lead lining. Because it's so her corpse is literally that radioactive.
I just think what she went through and her persistence, and as a first female scientist, is just something to be admired. And then the other person, I would love to meet Sojourner Truth. I think to meet the woman who fought for custody of her kids successfully in a court of law, to be the first black woman to do that, to win a court case. I
was going to ask you who she was.
Yeah, so Sojourner Truth was, a former slave, and they sold her, she's often referred to in the women's suffrage movement, because she was one of the ones that was advocating for women's suffrage, even though she was a black woman and knew that she wouldn't be able to get, those rights, but she knew, this was the first step, and then, it'll come for me. But she knew the importance of women's rights in general. But to me, her story, learning English, escaping, and then going into a courthouse, right, and fighting for custody of her kids who had been sold by the slave master to another slave master in another state, and that was a violation of the law. And to have the guts to go into a courthouse, right, knowing that you were an escaped slave, and say, "I'm here to get my kid back." To go through hell and high water to say, I will do this for my child because I want my child back with me. And then once she got custody back of her child, dealing with the trauma of having been separated, I think it's a reflection of, what so many of our refugee children are going through, who are coming to this country, and the trauma that they're dealing with. And my best friend, who's Guatemalan, she was separated from her parents for a long time. And she's, 50-something. She's still dealing with that trauma. So just to talk to someone who has that much strength and persistence and tenacity, I just would be fascinated to talk to her to say, how did you do this? How did you get through this? How can I be like you? Like, I just admire her so much.
I was expecting more something those are real good, serious answers. I was expecting something more like Kermit the Frog.
Oh, oh, well, you didn't say real or fake. So you said real or you said alive or dead. So, yeah, no, I would definitely want to talk to.
Wait, Kermit the Frog's fake?
No, I definitely want to talk to Wonder Woman. She's like one of my heroes.
Yeah. The movie's great. The first one, the second one, not so much.
Yeah, and not a lot of people were crazy about the second one.
Yeah. What about what is your favorite movie?
Oh gosh. That's a hard one. I love, like right now I could watch over and over again Black Panther.
Mm-hmm. Great movie.
I love that film. I've actually made lesson plans built around it.
Really?
I'm like, we have to teach Black Panther. The first Wonder Woman movie I could watch over and over again.
It's great.
And I love that it was that it was set in World War I. I'm like, yes. So then I can justify teaching it in history class. I'm like, yes, we're gonna watch. We're gonna talk about the No Man's Land and how Wonder Woman gets up. And that's like, it has to be one of my favorite scenes I can watch over and over again. Yeah. Where they're like, Diana, no one's ever crossed this. This is No Man's Land, right? No man has ever crossed this. And then she, takes off her cloak and she gets up, and I'm like, yeah, go Wonder Woman. And you just want to cheer her on because you're like, yeah, because it's No Man's Land, but women can cross it, right? So there's just that sense of empowerment, and she just gets in there and kicks butt. It's like, this is so cool. It's so empowering. So yeah, those are two of my favorite films I could just watch over and over. I know my husband would say, will you keep watching Aquaman? I do. I love watching Aquaman.
That's a Jason same reason my wife watches it. Because he walks around shirtless.
Who doesn't, right? Who doesn't love Aquaman? And just
that. Actually, speaking as a film critic,
yeah,
I'll tell you this: Aquaman was a lot better film than it should have been. What I mean? It's kind of a cheesy character. Out of all the DC stuff, it's probably the hardest one to make interesting, and they managed to pull it off.
Well, and I could see like the actual story, like as you're watching it, there's a scene where he dives off the boat into, where all the scary monsters are and stuff, and it's, you can see, like, as an art teacher, like I can see the visual. Visualization of that scene, and then for someone to put it into film, I'm like, that is just the cool. And every time I see that scene, my husband's like, why are you fascinated with it? I said, because for someone to take someone's artistic idea and put it into film is just really, it's just a cool idea. Yeah. Like, here's my idea, can you do this in film and make it look real? And I just think that it's just such amazing talent and teamwork.
The ultimate form of magic.
Yeah. And I said, I could see like this in a comic book. Like, I could see that scene in the pain of the comic book, which is just cool.
What was the first concert you went to?
Oh, this is going to be embarrassing. The first concert I went to was Menudo in Tijuana.
Okay.
My tío Mon bought me and my sister's concert tickets. He was a doctor in Tijuana, and he goes, hey, I got you guys concert tickets to go see Menudo in Tijuana. And I'm like, I'm going to my first concert. And I was so excited. I remember my dad gave me some money, and I bought like a little Menudo purse. And my older sister bought some flowers. And she's going to kill me for this, but she bought some flowers, and she tried to throw them on stage to the singers, and she missed, and they landed in the speaker, and they had to stop the concert and take the flowers out of the speaker. She's like, Riz, why did you do that?
I had a girlfriend, and we were at a Springsteen concert, and we were in, I think, the third row. And
oh my gosh!
Someone threw down on this onto the floor right in front of us one of those neon bracelets, and she picked it up and looked at me. I said, "Throw it on the stage."
Yeah.
So she threw it on the stage, and it went right past Bruce Springsteen. It's in the middle of telling one of his intense little stories, and Springsteen stopped, walked over, picked up the thing, and threw it back in the audience. And says, "I hate these effing things." The girl I was with was so embarrassed and so mad at me for suggesting throwing it up on the wall, up on the stage. So,
oh my goodness!
Apparently, the lesson we've learned in today's podcast is to not throw things on the
Don't
stage.
Throw things onto stages at concerts. Just don't do that. It's not a good idea.
Bad idea.
Not a good idea.
So let's get your elevator pitch. You've got 60 seconds. Tell me why someone should vote for you. Go.
My name is Ruth Luevanos. I'm running for Congress. I'm a teacher. I'm a labor leader. I am a first Latina elected to Simi Valley City Council, and I am not going to back down from addressing and fixing the issues in our community that have been gone unheard for so long.
And where can somebody get in touch with you if they want to be involved with the campaign? Or
So I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and my website is ruthluevanosforcongress.com. And if you remember the Evan in the middle, like you did, Stephen, you did a great job, then you'll be able to find me.
Okay, great. Well, Ruth, I appreciate you taking the time. Let's do one more thing. We always ask for people to give us their best evil villain laugh.
Oh my gosh. My teenage kids and I sit on the couch and do this for fun. So I've done this to my students, and they just laugh. They think it's hilarious. So here's my evil teacher laugh. I will put on my Dolores Umbridge persona.
10. I give that a 10 right there. That's awesome. Do you have a joke for us?
Oh my goodness. Oh, I don't tell jokes anymore.
Come on, you said as part of being a teacher, you
yeah.
have to do that, so.
I know, but the kids are so comedic. So oh my God, I can't think of any jokes right now. Yeah,
you need to either sing or rap for me.
I need to sing. Oh, it's a marvelous night for a moon dance. I can't wait till the moment arrives. There you go.
You pick Van Morrison. Very, very nice. Okay, well, Ruth, I appreciate you taking the time to do this. Wish you much luck in the election. Certainly a very qualified candidate, great resume, and I hope everybody will check out your website,
Just put the Evan in the middle.
Luevanos.
There you go.
For Congress. And .com on Twitter, Facebook, and a couple other places. Check it out, and we hope you guys enjoyed the talk.
You've been listening to the Talk of Santa Clarita. Listen to us on iTunes, SoundCloud.com, YouTube, and Stitcher. Barring a life event getting in the way, a new podcast is available every Tuesday. Questions, comments, and show ideas can be sent to thetalkofsantaclarita@gmail.com. You can also call or text us at 661-505-8672. That's 661-505-8672. Follow us on Twitter at The Talk of SC or on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at The Talk of Santa Clarita. You can also visit our website by going to www.thetalkofsantaclarita.com. This has been a production of Radio Free Santa Clarita Incorporated, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. To donate, go to radiofreesantaclarita.org/donate. Radio Free Santa Clarita, on the net and on the air, and we're very much aware.
Any questions?
Hey Ruth, why is there a crisis on the border, and why do some people have a problem with immigrants?